Those guys are always doing like, it's like they're attempting jackass, but without really understanding the essence of it. Because
What made it funny or
yeah,
entertaining?
because
Yeah.
jackass is very like it's a love it, it's a
Yeah.
bunch of guys hurting each other, but they're all friends with each other and shit. And
Yeah.
then like
Exactly.
Republicans attempting comedy is always just like, we're gonna waterboard Andy. Watch, prove it's fine.
There he is.
I did the thing. But you can't hear me yet, can you?
Hey.
Can you hear me?
No, we're not getting your mic, but
How about now?
Yeah, I got you now. Yeah.
Yay! I did the thing. I did the internet. I interneted everybody. We did it.
All right,
Yeah.
Anders.
So
Give him the
happy you made
Pepe
it.
glasses. It's epic.
Are we doing sunglasses? Did we decide?
I
Are we?
still don't know how. I lost my arm to a wave.
Oh, do you literally mean I can wear sunglasses? We could do that. I can't see very well with these.
Oh
on.
wow, you have IRL ones.
Yes, I have many props around me actually. I also have a beanie for when I do Tim Pool segments. This one has a dolphin on it.
Nice.
It's a dolphin beanie for my Poseidus gang. All the Poseidus, shout out to y'all. And the
He
nuclear.
do be wearing that beanie.
Yeah.
I've never seen him without it. I don't
It's-
even know if he's bald under it.
He is, yes. There's a video on YouTube you can look up where someone de-beanies him and then he threatens to fight him because he says he gets doxxed. He's like, you've effectively doxed me by taking my beanie off.
And the beanie is the thing that. Oh, what an idiot!
No.
That guy's so stupid.
He has his address tattooed on his scalp.
I bet if you're bald and you shave your head, a beanie feels awesome.
That's true, actually. That's true.
Well, not if it gets sweaty.
Actually, that sucks. I don't know. I have a glorious head of hair, but a friend of mine who shaves his head told me like, oh yeah, once you finally do it, like you don't realize like all this weird stuff like why you have eyebrows. It's just the sweat droplets because your hair doesn't catch them anywhere, so they just roll into your eye sockets and shit. Apparently, it's fucked up.
Have you never shaved your head, like for anything?
I shaved my head a few times as just a weird bit when I was like 22 or something like that. Like one time when I was when I was in college, I lived next door to a poker house, and so in between whatever college bullshit, I would just go over there and there was just like a 24-hour poker game playing, and I played tons and tons of it. And one time I ended up shaving my head for, I can't remember. I felt like doing it or something. I just thought it'd be funny or just wanted to know what it would be like to have a shaved head. And I was like, wait a minute, you know what I should do is I should go play poker with like, I stopped halfway through shaving my head. I just had this weird fucked up half hair thing going on. And I put my hoodie on and like my sunglasses and I was playing like one of those guys. And then I waited until I got into a big hand with someone where it was like, what am I going to do? And I was like, gee, I don't know. And I just pulled my hair back like that. They're like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
I shaved my head when I was 15 for a play, and I went to an African-American barbershop in my neighborhood, and as soon as I walked in, they're like, yo man, there's nothing we can do with that, because I had like
you are too white. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like I just like a
We
huge...
literally we can't even buzz you. We don't know of any idea.
Well, eventually
how
I
to deal with
explained
your
to them,
head.
I was like, all I want you to do is just take it all off, and they're like, all right.
But then you have to leave and never come back.
Like another guy, like they have to get the specialist.
How should we formally start this, by the way? I was thinking y'all should do some shout outs if you didn't know. You're live on my stream, so I'm sure everyone would like to be introduced to the Pod Damn America crew.
We are live.
You are live, yeah. No gamer words, please. Save them for after.
Who was on Jake? Is that myself?
You.
Wow, how did I get on there?
Anders.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, I'm most comfortable podcasting behind a giant Anders Lee in a bucket hat these days. Oh, you look like Tupac now. That's badass.
Oh yeah, there we go. Just two very different connotations. Yeah, I guess we should.
Yeah, let's start recording on our end. I'll fix it later.
Yeah, I have to remember not to reference too hard the visuals for our listeners because they.
That can be between you and the Serfs audience.
Oh, that's a good point.
They are getting a visual smorgasbord right
Soon
now.
they'll be
I'll say
like,
that much.
you know, if we're talking about this stuff too much.
Yeah.
It's like Anders works for Zoom and is just demonstrating the software at this point. You can be a bear. You can have Z's.
This whole thing's a plug.
All right. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Poddamn America. I'm Jake Flores. That's Alex Patak.
What's up, everybody? I'm live from the beach.
Anders Lee is here on the TV.
Anders Lee here.
We're using Zoom and all the fun filters in it. If you're listening audio style and you can't hear, you are missing out, motherfucker. Joining us today is the Serfs from YouTube's own. Welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here finally. This is actually really cool, I'll be honest, and I'm not just saying this to begin this with some, self-flating or just circle jerk, if they say, but y'all are one of the few podcasts I listen to that I've now allowed myself to enter inside, so this is cool. Like, I do listen to Poddamn America on a regular basis, so
Wow.
Jesus, mate.
yeah.
Didn't know anyone listened to us. That's always cool to hear. Thanks. Well, yeah.
I thought this was like a make work thing I was doing to make Anders happy. It's like a government program.
Yeah.
It's like Make-A-Wish for... I'm not going down that road. Yeah. We appreciate you coming on, Lance. Always. Is that a soda stream you're drinking?
It is my apartheid water that I was informed of post-purchase. I'll have everyone know, okay? So it was my chat. I was in the middle of drinking because I drink a lot of soda. And I was like, I'm trying to do the good thing here. I don't want to just, pile up the cans and everything. And I was quick to learn that apparently it's a really bad company that supports some really shady stuff. So...
if you love soda, you should come to Gaza sometime and get this cool new invention you can have for your house.
I found out the same thing about Sabra hummus after I bought my lifetime supply. So it's like
hummus as an industry seems completely co-opted by Israel. I don't know.
I actually was carbonating my Sabra hummus in my soda stream when I tried out all of this. Devastating.
They would
probably
taste
taste it. You'll never go back either. You want to get that carbonated hummus pop?
Yeah, you're going for a jog and you just throw it in your face like a glass of water.
It's the new milk.
It is actually more personally ethical to purchase chocolate hummus or snickerdoodle hummus, both of which I freely admit, and I will get hate for this, but I enjoy both of them because like Whole Foods and Boar's Head and Trader Joe's make that shit. But Sabra...
Wait, those are real things? Snickerdoodle?
Oh, yeah. Snickerdoodle hummus. They sell it at Whole Foods, which they would never make in Israel. It would be like illegal to make it there. But I like eating it, and people are grossed out by it. But it's like, okay, just imagine if it was like cinnamon or chocolate chickpea spread. Then it's okay. But once you say hummus, people get weird about it.
They'll throw you in jail.
Yeah.
That's weird. You're weird.
What does that taste like?
It tastes good. It just tastes like a spread. It tastes like it tastes like
is it like Nutella and hummus at the same time?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. It's like sort of a different textured Nutella without the nut.
Alex,
without the nut. Yeah, I know the cat is relentlessly crossing in front of my beach time resort.
Okay. We have to stop talking about the visuals for the podcast audio. Or maybe we rub it in their face that they can't see it. Anyway, what are we talking about today, boys? Why did we unite the unholy streams of podcasting and YouTube for this blasphemous occasion?
To inaugurate the birth of a new sort of left medium sphere, and that is leftist smell-o-vision.
Smell streaming. I follow you.
We got visual, we got audio, we have another sense. Maybe we could do like a, what's that thing? Auto theater where you touch stuff.
Haptic feedback.
The 5D. Yeah, the 5D experience.
Yeah.
I have not heard of that outside of a Shrek context.
It's the first thing humans do with every technology they come up with is try to make it into fucking, right? So the haptic feedback right now, all the scientists are trying to figure out VR porn. Like, oh, put on a Game Boy glove and feels like a tit.
I love now that there's that thing where it's like you can plug in your fleshlight and connect it to the internet to feel the simulation of another human being. I was like, I don't know how connected I would feel. I would feel more like I'm having sex with like an electronic cabbage and my friend is doing the same. We're just doing it at the same time, you know?
Here's my problem with that stuff is that I know how like electronics work. I know how technology works. And like, I'll give you an example. I just bought a PS5 and I kind of have buyer's remorse because it's like huge. It's the biggest thing I've ever owned. It's like a mini fridge. It's a big fat piece of shit. And I'm like, this is stupid. I should just waited a year because they're going to come out with a little slim one that like fits underneath your TV or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And with like stuff like this VR sex stuff, I just know that like, if you spend like $2,000 on some weird setup where you're like, there's like a fucking fleshlight on a little robot arm thing that's moving back and forth on your dick, and you're like on a VR helmet, you're just gonna like a year later they're gonna come out with one that actually works, and you're just gonna realize you're an idiot. Like,
that doesn't look ridiculous too.
Yeah.
You have the sex equivalent of video games from like 1991 in your house.
Yeah.
Trying to show off to your friends.
Hexen or something.
I used a flashlight manually that actually my cousin gave me for my birthday one year, and it was nice, but like it was expensive. So the problem was, it's like I want to do this more, but then I'm gonna get addicted and go broke just buying these expensive fancy ass flashlights.
Wait,
it's a problem. Millions of Americans.
Yeah, you had to throw it away. I think there's a way you can buy new filters for it or whatever, but then that's
filters. I think you're
supposed to clean it. Yeah,
really?
It's not a one-time use. Disposable
Andrew has
flashlights.
purchased hundreds of soda streams. They've all been thrown into a landfill.
There's this urban legend about Brad Pitt. Like, he's so rich that he lights a cigarette and he inhales one long drag and then he throws it on the ground because that's how many cigarettes he can afford. He doesn't need to get a flight. That's what Andrews is doing with flashlights.
It just sounds like a mess.
Yeah, I don't think it's.
I was always inspired by Andrew's work in Fight Club.
Fight Club, but fuck club, and by fuck club I mean jack off club into a flashlight club.
Fight Club was.
Yeah,
you're on to something here. Let's work this out. Maybe that's the podcast.
Okay, Anders, you had the topic in mind today, yeah? Or are we just dicking around?
Well, yeah, we've been kind of dicking around about giving Fritz his due. Of course, I'm speaking of Walter F. Mondale.
Of course.
And,
yeah, we've been joking about Fritz.
I do. You know, there is so much interesting background to like his days when he got his political start. That I thought I would dive into a little bit about it, but I kind of want to do a whole episode because this barely scratches the surface of like Minnesota and sort of Midwestern / Canadian labor socialist politics.
That's why I'm here.
In the 30s. Because around this time, there was the Farmer Labor Party in Minnesota, which is still technically a thing, because I remember I moved to Minnesota when I was 12 years old, and every other place in America, you got the Republicans, you got the Democrats, and in Minnesota, it's Republicans or the DFL. I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Is that some Norwegian?
Dad, I'd like to fuck.
Yeah, it would.
Don't do the math on that. That's what
DFL would be dad who I would
do the math.
Dad who I would fuck and like it. I guess that could work.
Sure. Have you found the dad you'd fuck and like? Millions of women are searching.
But the reason is because there was a merger between the Farmer Labor Party and the Democratic Party, which was the third party in the state of Minnesota. For a while, the top two were the Republicans and the farmer laborers, who were socialists. Many of them. It was basically like a communist party that controlled the governorship in Minnesota for several years in the 30s. But this was happening at the same time as our neighbors to the north in Canada of which I've been. Actually, I went from Minnesota to Canada. No one caught me. Canoed. Don't tell
Nice.
anybody.
Whoa.
But
Yeah, you should probably admit to that on the internet if you can,
I
and any other crimes you could think of.
I'm gonna call North Ice on you.
Dude, do y'all do the same thing at the border that happens to Canadians when we cross? Because like I cannot admit on the internet if I've ever done a drug, for the simple reason that when I go to the US, they sometimes ask me, hey, by the way, give us all your social media. Like give us your phone and show us your Facebook. They can
Really?
ask that of me, yeah. I don't know if they do that on the way in.
Wow, I don't
Yeah.
know. I think they just assume we're all fucked up, right?
Fair.
And a big part of Canada's economy is like 19-year-olds coming over to drink, right?
Yep.
Because the drinking age is 19.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I feel like it's not as stringent.
I've heard
There's no
stories
better-
about comedians not being able to get back or something when they go over to do a gig, and then something like that happens. I can't remember what the rule is because we're not allowed to tour or haven't been for a year now or whatever. But I remember hearing nightmare stories where people are like, "Yeah, don't do something." It had something to do with there's like merch too. Like you have to declare your merch, and so if you try to hide it inside of your fucking floorboards in your van or something, and then they catch you, you can go to Canada
Weird.
jail.
They just search your car and come out with a keg of T-shirts with your face on it and go, "What is this?" Yeah, you had something to explain, pal.
Oh, I'm a cult leader. Don't worry, it's fine.
What does the fart machine mean? Why is that printed over all these?
Guns drawn and everything.
There's no better visual representation of what the relationship between Canada and the US is like than going across the border into Canada, which is pretty innocuous, and then coming back into America where it looks like they have like mounted machine gun turrets on the walls and shit, and like camera, like retinal scanners. It's like Metal Gear Solid coming back into the country. It's amazing.
Yeah, you have to go
that
through
and
the
a lot of signs will say like Jesus is inside you, die for his blood. Like you'll see big ones like that as soon as I cross the border into like, you know, Washington. That'll be like one of the first things I see.
Your
It's
tax dollars at work.
And you're in the Vancouver area, Western.
Yes, I live in Vancouver, in British Columbia.
In Van, as they call it.
Yeah, in Van.
Must be nice.
I got a friend who lives in Van, and she's a Bitcoin enthusiast. It seems like a good spot for that.
I would have laughed him off the stage a couple years ago, and now he's probably the richest person we know. So.
I think he still lives with his mom, but yes.
Still.
Wow. Yeah, he bought his mom a new house and moved in.
It was like the place to be. British Columbia had like the lowest rates of anything for a long time, and now Canada is decidedly getting pretty fucked. It's for the same reasons you'd expect, right? They're doing that thing where they blame the youth, the wild youth, for being on the beaches and partying, when really it's like every other place. It's meatpacking plants, facility centers, frontline workers that are the cause of the outbreaks.
Okay. But what I wanted to ask you about is there's the Democratic Farmer Labor Party in the 1930s, and there's also maybe a little later, but around the same general time zone, the NDP, which is still around, the New Democratic Party. How did that come about?
So in Saskatchewan,
I should say.
Oh, sorry. Yes, a boot. In Saskatchewan, which is this is going to be a weird story because Saskatchewan right now is incredibly conservative as a province, but Saskatchewan back in the 1940s was just a burgeoning area for socialist ideas, worker cooperatives, a communist literature, stuff of that nature. It was incredibly left wing, and they elect the first socialist government in North America, known as the CCF. With the leader being Tommy Douglas. Tommy Douglas is known now as the grandfather of public health care in Canada. And just so all y'all know how important this person is, we did this poll a couple years ago where they had to say who was the greatest Canadian of all time. And
I heard about this.
Yeah, some of the people you'd expect, right? Wayne Gretzky, I think, considered one of the greatest athletes in human history. He comes in at like number 8.
Where was Neil Young?
I don't even know if Neil Young made the top 10. I mean,
wow.
I wanna correct myself on that. But anyways, someone is right now saying I'm losing my Canadian stripes. What our
How
first
high did Drake get?
one below the Beebs. But yeah, number one was Tommy Douglas. So that really goes to show any American, if you ever you're a politician and you pull off a public option for people, you will be remembered as the greatest American in human history. Possibly if these trends continue. So Tommy Douglas gets elected. The CCF becomes the first socialist government, and there becomes this huge battle where you see all these people. It's basically capital and industries coalesce to form all these right-wing groups that start to vilify. They become real racist. I'm gonna get right to the root of it. Their argument is that it's a bad thing if you get this because Canadian doctors will leave the country and we'll get a whole bunch of foreign doctors coming in and they'll get replaced. So you'll see Indian doctors coming in. Heaven forbid, even like racist.
They're terrible at that.
Oh yeah. If there's one thing you gotta worry about, it's Indian doctors. But that's kind of the idea.
Doctor. No one ever yells that when they go into the hospital, no matter what.
That's true, actually.
Yeah, even David Duke would be like, "Ugh, can I get a Punjabi, please?"
Keep away from me. Look at the list of greatest Canadians. Number 10, Wayne Gretzky. He got beat out by Alexander Graham Bell, and I'm sure he's furious about it. And
Alexander Graham Bell's Canadian?
I guess so.
Can you run through the whole list? I'm curious about it.
It says he was born in Edinburgh, Scotland. A lot of these folks.
Edinburgh,
Scotland.
There's a big migration. There's a lot of people who are Canadian that are originally from Scotland.
Oh, interesting.
Because of the royalty, because of the crown. And
because of the crown.
Yeah.
Are just boring. Like first Prime Minister of Canada, Sir John A. Macdonald.
Who was a genocidal maniac, by the way.
Really?
Oh yeah. He loves starving Indigenous people. Loves starving Indigenous people. You know how basically in England they're like, let's throw blood on Winston Churchill statues and take them down? That's the same thing that happens here in Canada for him.
Oh,
wow.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Number 7, Don Cherry, 1934, hockey coach and commentator. That's fucking cool.
Huge
That's the guy
racist.
who wears
Massive racist.
Doesn't he wear the crazy pinstripe suits? And is that somebody else?
He looks like it.
No, that's him.
Okay.
That's him. Huge racist.
Great.
Yeah.
Why is he the 7th greatest Canadian of all time?
Because he's like, we have a show in Canada called, well, we did. It was called Hockey Night in Canada. It was on the CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. It's a publicly funded broadcasting, and every single Saturday was Hockey Night. He was one of the co-hosts, so he just became a Canadian icon because of it. Even though they would eventually have to add like a 2-minute delay on the live feed to be able to censor his language, because he would always slip in some weird racist shit underneath his tongue, and they'd be like, well, you can't say that, but fuck, goddamn, yeah.
Cherry bomb, that's what they call it.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
Well, I should also make sure to mention this. Tommy Douglas is also the grandfather of someone else who we may be familiar with. In the United States.
Fritz?
That would be perfect for the purposes of our episode.
Is it Michael Douglas?
Keep guessing.
Doug from the show Doug.
Doug Douglas. Doug Funny was an op. His actual name was Doug Douglas.
I'll give you a hint. It was a popular TV show in America about the cycle of 24 hours.
Oh, the guy from 24 is the answer.
Yeah.
Keith Sutherland.
Keith Sutherland, yeah.
Yeah. Normal named man, Kiefer.
Well, is that a Canadian name, Kiefer?
I don't know. I mean, it's not the family name. I don't know why they changed it.
But he was a baby. He's like, what was I named after? And his mom was like, when you scrape the inside of a weed pipe that you got from Hot Topic, that's what we decided to call you.
It has strong college nickname vibes to it. Like it just stuck.
Yeah.
It'd be like if you were named like Stinky Foot or whatever for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Donald Sutherland, I will say, I was very surprised. He played, I watched Backdraft recently, and he plays a serial arsonist who kills people. And I was like, there's no way this guy can pull it off, because he's like Walter Mondale. He's like a nice northern old man, but he does such a creepy, good serial killer in Backdraft.
Sometimes
just a great actor.
How you do it. Remember the guy from Third Rock from the Sun when he was on Dexter and he was terrifying? Goes
John
all the
Lithgow?
way back around. Yeah, John Lithgow. He was
one of the best
he plays
Canadians.
a great horror villain in everything.
Yeah. No, you don't want to freak out a dork, man. Somebody said something.
Anybody who's that smooth.
Somebody said something that made me laugh really hard a while back. It's Carlos Valencia, you know that comic? He's had this old joke on Facebook that he like just reposted or whatever, but it was when this was happening, I guess. He was like, he's talking about Bill Cosby, and he was like, you know, listen, I understand that Bill Cosby's a predator and he's horrible and everything, but like people need to understand you're taking your life into your own hands when you spend any time alone with a clean comic, which is like so true. Anyone
is that a well-known thing?
This is Sinbad defamation.
A lot of like squeaky clean comics turn out to be like pedophiles and serial killers and shit.
Right.
It's weird.
No, and
like,
Patton Oswalt, in his book, he writes about he did some festival, the Clean Comic, in like 1990, and it was like, wow, this guy destroyed. And it was like because I think they were doing somewhere in Canada, and it was like just all clean stuff, and he cleaned up. And then it turned out he was a serial killer. Like,
yeah.
Oh,
I forgot the name of the guy, which is weird because that seems important. But yeah, no, it's like a famous fucking story in comedy.
Well, you know they're good at hiding stuff because they're already hiding all their swears and sexual analyses.
That's what I'm saying, man. Anyways, back to whatever the hell we were talking about.
So the NDP today, it was sort of the leftmost edge, it seems, in Canada for a long time. But today it never fails to disappoint me. And you know, you would think I'd be saying that about the Liberals. Right, they got the man in Ottawa, Justin Trudeau, but NDP is positioned to the left of the Liberal Party, but they keep, just not going hard enough. It feels from an American perspective. I don't know.
Okay, well, do you want the good or the bad? Because there's two separate things here. There's the provinces that are run by NDP governments, like mine, for example, and then there's also a couple others. But then there's the federal NDP run by Jagmeet Singh, who's the leader of the NDP party. They have done some good things. Like when the COVID first hit, the pandemic first started, the Liberals did what they were supposed to, which is we effectively have to shut everything down, and then each province did their measures to do so as well. The NDP pushed Justin Trudeau and the Libs to doing what was called the CERB, and the CERB is effectively a UBI program in Canada where any single person who wanted to could get $2,000 a month every single month just by going online and clicking, yes, I qualify for it. Now, whether or not you did, because you would have to say that I lost my job or I can't work or whatever, but even if you weren't employed, you would qualify, right? You would be lying if you had an actual job and you're trying to get money on top of that. But anyways, for the first, I think 8 months, that was a lifeline for most of the country. And that's something that I looked towards, all of you in America. And that's one of the times when I was like, it's so savage to me that people like Trump have given you like a one-time $1,600 or $1,500 check and then expect anyone to live off that. Meanwhile, here they were doing like a $2,000 a month program. So that was one good thing.
Wow. It's funny to me how, in America, like on the Twitter left, we say libs all the time, colloquially. It's kind of like our own thing, but in Canada, that's like literally the name of the ruling party.
Yeah, they're the center.
So they just refer to as the libs.
They are literally the libs, but they're more like center neoliberal party. The NDP is kind of centered left, sometimes further to the left of that. Depends again on the province and if it's federal or provincial.
And on Palestine, Jagmeet has, it seems, taken somewhat of a brave stance. Is that fair to say?
So they just had their convention, and in that convention, there was so many radical leftist things announced. Like, here's what we want to do. We want to tax anyone who has more than $999 million at 100%. So there's never going to be a thing such as a billionaire in the country again. Basically, if you have more than $999 million, you get taxed 100% of your assets, your wealth, your stock, your cars, anything. So that's basically showing you what is proposed and what gets everyone excited, and then the final product being where it comes out at the end after all the voting and everything is done. But yeah, as they're publicly acknowledging the treatment of Palestinians. Whether or not they'll do anything is another matter. Did
you lose Mr. Wonderful over that?
Mr. Wonderful?
Mr. Wonderful on Shark's Tank, the Canadian billionaire.
Oh, that Kevin, what's his face?
The face of Canadian money.
Baldy?
He's not running anymore. He's out. He stopped.
He's afraid. He's waiting for a larger investor to come in.
Yeah, I wish he ran. He was a huge asshole, and there would have been a lot of funny things to say about him.
Yeah.
you must have a lot of billionaires, or there a lot of like inventors, or I'm just assuming because they're in like the industrialized first world that like you're getting the same crop America has. I don't know if we just have a better infrastructure for slush funds down here and they all move down here, but
we have the same income inequality disparity that has, like, gone to extreme heights since the pandemic started. Where there are millions of people without jobs, and the richest Canadians are just racking in the cash. It's the exact same problem. It's little miniature versions of everything the U.S. has in terms of problems, just more boring because it's Canada, right? Like where y'all have just 5 companies controlling all media, we have 3. This is kind of like it's the same thing, but it's just a little more boring at the end of the day.
Well, it's a shame because I remember seeing an interview. This is before Jagmeet got elected leader of the NDP, but someone was running for NDP leader, or there was just like a discussion I saw on Canadian TV about the party, and they were asked, like, are you sort of the Canadian answer to Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn? And this official in the NDP was like, no, this is just a Canadian thing. Keep it Canadian, baby. Don't think too widely. And it's just like, major boner killer, because we want international socialism, as some were trying to achieve back in the day in Minnesota in the 1930s. Actually a hotbed of Trotskyist activity. A lot of Trotskyist influence in the trucker strike of 1934 when Floyd Olson was governor. And he acted as kind of an intermediary between the state and the union. And that was when, the Republicans in state office, that was, a big reason behind investing in like state police and stuff like that, was to break strikes.
Anders, I'm raising my hand on Zoom. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to lower my hand. And now I'm back. Okay, so if it's the Farmer Labor Party, what percentage of the actual constituents are farmers? Is this like America's second bread basket?
Well, it's like kind of 50-50. I in theory, it's 50-50. Like they're literally Americanizing the Bolsheviks, the hammer and the sickle. Because they're
just everyday tools you use on the farm.
And in the factory, that's really what it was trying to unite the rural farmers who had immigrated from places like Norway, and the workers who had also immigrated from places like Norway but lived in cities. And
it's a very privileged question to ask, but like, what manual labor uses the hammer? Just railway installation?
Carpenters.
Yeah,
carpenters.
Thank you.
Hammering things. Hammering Dale.
I mean, it's funny you say that because my dad
Brothers.
literally.
Hammer time.
It's funny you say that because my dad literally built a railroad in Minnesota in like the 60s or 70s, so he would have used a hammer.
Well,
yeah,
cool.
Not by himself.
I was just saying,
but you were framing it like your dad made a railway by himself.
Like he was John Henry, and
you may have heard of him.
There was a machine competing with him at the same time. He had to move faster than the machine, but he did it, and that's how he made me.
No, he's a story about how he had a summer job doing this, and they would stay in motels, and they would do it sun up, sundown, and one day sun was down, so they went back to the motel, and he turns on the TV after this day of grueling labor, and Woodstock is going on, and he's like, fuck.
I should have been there instead of hammering like a dumbass.
And he built silos too. Shout out.
I have an ox friend.
One of the first things that we discussed when you started the stream was shout outs, and Andrew's like, my dad, you built the railroad.
Single-handedly.
Oh yeah. Someone's got to do it.
Are these related at all to the like sewer socialists?
Yeah, sort of. So it's around the same time. That was sort of more in Milwaukee and Wisconsin, especially at the municipal level in Milwaukee. But he had a lot of that in Minneapolis. But instead of like the Socialist Party, it was the Farmer Labor Party. And that gave it sort of a broader constituency because they were still red baited. but it was a little harder to do because it was like, and this is the reason why they have not dropped the FL even to this day, because there's so many people in Minnesota who are like, I'm a farmer, I'm a laborer, or I live near a farm. I want someone looking out for those interests. So that's why it's just a good political sort of technique. And so that's why for a long time they were the second party in Minnesota. They would still lose to the Republicans a lot, especially in the like state legislature. But in 1930, they were able to elect Floyd Olson, and he gets little by little, he gets sort of more radical. He's one of the few cases of someone getting into office and becoming more radical over time. And eventually is their platform is calling for just a full-on cooperative economy. He's like a sitting governor of Minnesota calling for socialism.
Cool.
And then he dies of stomach cancer, because back then when you got a deathly diagnosis like that, the doctor like wouldn't tell you were going to die for some reason. That didn't change.
He'd probably give you a
until,
cigarette or something. Smoke
Yeah.
these.
well, it was seen as like unethical to tell the person that they were going to die. So they didn't tell Floyd Olson he was going to kick it.
I want to be told I'm going to die by a white doctor, please.
You're whitest.
Get that man in here.
So basically, like, he dies, and then his replacement is even further to the left than him. He's actually saying, because there are workers like occupying the state capitol, and he's one of the few politicians in history who, when that happens, is like, good, fuck yeah. And so
Come into my office.
yeah. So partially because of that, he gets, I think, voted out, and the Republicans take over. And it's just it's weird because all of these Democrats who today are the ones whining still about like Nader and spoilers, they're spoiling the Farmer Labor Party in the 20s, 30s, and 40s until 1944, when they finally merge, in large part because of Hubert Humphrey, mayor of Minneapolis, who has a loyal lieutenant in a young Walter Mondale. And with Fritz's help, they purge the communist and socialist elements of the farmer labor side of the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. Yeah.
Was this Fritz's idea?
But
Is
for anyone
Fritz behind
listening,
this?
Fritz is Walter Mondale. I just feel like
Yeah.
that's not intuitive.
They all know.
Every Minnesotan knows that, I'm going to say. But, yeah, Wally
In
Mons,
the water.
he's and it's not easy to do at first, because there are things like it's a very tense merger. They think they're just going to be able to do what I described earlier, which is they keep the symbolism of the farmer labor aesthetic, but they drop all the crazy radical policies. But that's very difficult to do at first, because they still have a stranglehold on like the party apparatus. And so the Democratic side has to do things like put out posters saying, will the DFL party of Minnesota be a clean, decent, honest, progressive party, or will it be a communist front organization? And
what year is this?
Yeah, so
This
it's got to
is-
get close to the Red Scare right now, right?
yeah, this is in like the late 40s, early 50s, like
Okay.
1947.
Is there any like just, violence? Is there like Pinkertons and shit and Tommy guns and stuff, or is it all just political?
Well, that was happening more broadly with like confrontations between labor and bosses in the state, but this was an inter-party thing, so
Okay.
I don't believe there were any like clandestine forces,
It
beating
was just
people
the
up. and shooting.
briefcase, the pen.
Yeah. You know what there was, though, is there was a reporter who accused Floyd Olson of being bought by organized crime, because during the Depression, Minneapolis, and especially my hometown of St. Paul, were like hotbeds for bank robbers. Like that was where they hid out. That's where they lived. That's where they would also rob banks. They would, a lot of the time, bank robbers from St. Paul would go over to Minneapolis, rob a bank, and the
But you don't want
police.
to rob your own bank.
No, you don't, because they had an arrangement with the political class. So they'd rob a bank in Minneapolis. They'd be driving back to St. Paul, and the Minneapolis police would call St. Paul police and say like, hey, somebody just robbed a bank and they're going back to your city. And they'd be like, oh yeah, we'll get right on that. And then they just would not
No way.
do it. Yeah, because they were bought off. And it's possible that Olson was too. They never proved it. There was a journalist who was insinuating this, and then he wound up dead. So very
Weird.
possible that Floyd Olson was not only a socialist, but a gangster, a tool of criminal gangsterism as well.
I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Badass. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so anyway, there was a lot of tension. Eventually, like I'm trying to find this, but people like there was a letter of congratulation that the party sent to Hubert Humphrey for his great job as mayor of Minneapolis. They're like, you've done an excellent job, and the farmer labor faction was able to strike the word excellent from the letter.
Got him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, all right, wrecked.
Damn.
Yeah. But so
Enjoy your more modestly worded letter.
suffice to say, though, the Democratic faction that took over the DFL was at the time still way to the left of the Democratic Party today. And that's really where Walter Mondale was for most of his career, was like a New Deal, Great Society liberal, pro-civil rights, up until he was vice president. And that was when the transition to, neoliberalism was beginning under Carter. And he'd be like, well, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? But because he's a polite Minnesotan, he didn't want to confront his boss, Jimmy C, over his, deregulatory measures. And like, he just didn't get why they're talking about, how we have to cut back on government spending, because he's a New Deal guy. But then eventually he just drinks the Kool-Aid. He's a very tragic figure in that sense.
Brutal.
It's like
Yeah.
Jimmy Carter sounds a lot more imposing when you call him Jimmy C.
Jimmy
True.
C.
Yeah.
I mean, they did have like a mind meld, I will say. And because they very much both speak to sort of the Minnesotan Lutheran mindset.
But it sounds like he's just his end is his own politeness, right?
Yeah, in a way.
Too nice.
Right, in a way. And that's also why he was terrible at television.
It's
Because
like the most boring Shakespearean drama.
Yeah.
Yeah. The worst anime arc of all time.
right. Like Mondale was terrible on TV. That's one of his like faults that he would have admitted to, because he came up at a time when there was no TV. So by the 70s and 80s, you got like a made-for-TV president in Ronald Reagan, and Mondale just can't match him at all.
You give that guy a monkey, he'll sell you anything.
Right. There's like this video I watched where they're asking why there's like his, presidential launch video. And he's just like, we still have great problems in America with the environment. Like, I'm not exaggerating. That's literally like the environment is we got to clean up.
Oh yeah, no chance.
He's allowed to like give
Discrimination.
speeches and shit, right? Like, how did he get this far?
Well, it's the same thing as Joe Biden, except it actually worked this time. But it's the same thing as Joe Biden, where the primary voters were just like scared. So they were like, we have to have somebody who's, who we feel like an average voter would prefer over like Jesse Jackson or John Glenn or somebody.
Okay. So he like compromised his way onto the national stage, but then had no charisma, real like Twitter savant personal energy.
Right. I mean, it was a very difficult race to win for anybody. But it just defies logic to you have a pretty big win in 1980 for Ronald Reagan. And then in 1984, you nominate the vice president who just lost.
Get
It's like-
Mondale in there.
Yeah.
It's
Get
like-
him in. Send in Fritz.
He's ready. He's feral and
Right.
greased up for the occasion.
yeah.
Look, he's looking at his feet. He's confident.
Yeah. Like, why would you do that? And then also,
Okay.
like, even when he's at
Whatever
the
you guys want.
even when he's at the top of the but even when he's the one running for president, gets to write his own platform and everything, and go back to his New Deal roots and talk about the need to like actually make social investment, he doesn't. He goes with the trend, the dominant trends in the Democratic Party at that time, which is the fiscal austerity, and that's why he's famous for saying his big speech in the convention was like, President Reagan will raise your taxes but won't tell you. I will raise your taxes, and I just told you. Boom. And there are like 3 people in America, including my dad, who are like, yes, be honest with us.
But how shitty you will be.
Yeah. But like, the thing is
that me to be your president, you can fuck my wife. Is that what you want?
But the thing is, the taxes were not even going to anything good. They were going to paying down the deficit. That was it. He had no jobs program. He was not promising to like stimulate the economy or actually make people's lives directly better. It was just like, Reaganism light. He will say that he's the reason Reagan in his second term started negotiating with the Soviet Union. I think the jury's still out on that. But suffice to say, tragic in that sense. Nominated a woman for the first time. That's kind of his.
Lost every state but Minnesota.
Yeah, and DC. 2 of the places I've lived, is Mondale country.
Wow, that is a
he's
sweep.
a hit in Anders
That's
town.
a sweep
Yeah.
Yeah. If only for New York, which Ferraro was from, and was also actually anti-busing, which people leave out of the conversation about her historic nomination. But it would be one thing
to get excited about here.
It would be one thing if that was the tragic end of Walter Mondale. But there's even more tragedy, which is in 2002, Minnesota senator and Iraq war opposer Paul Wellstone votes against Iraq in the Senate as he's running for re-election. Then mysteriously, his plane crashes and he dies in Minnesota. And so they get Mondale to run in his place. And this is going to be his heroic return to public duty. But then he loses to Norm Coleman. So that's the tragic end of Mondale's public life.
And now he's dead.
I was just saying, yeah, he died, right?
Yeah, but he's been dead since 2002. No, he's actually it's hard to shit on him because he is a genuinely just a very sweet, decent, kind man.
Either that or he's like a clean comic, like he's a psycho and he's just hiding behind.
That's true.
I didn't know.
There could be that.
They told me to purge the communists. I didn't know.
Yeah, well, what's the origin of his downfall? How did things go from being this prominent, potentially like socialist leader to being what we're talking about today?
Well, I don't think he was ever a socialist. He was like a New Deal liberal.
Oh, okay.
So like,
is it the Minnesota machine? He's just riding that sweet Minnesota machine politics, and it behooved him to purge the communists, or was there something ideological there? What was the push to cleanse the party?
Yeah, it was ideological because, on the one hand, Hubert Humphrey, the Democratic wing of the Democratic Farmer Labor Party, they wanted more New Deal style stuff. They wanted universal health care. They wanted investment in schools, and it was very progressive on civil rights. That's all good stuff. But they did not want what the farmer labor part of the party wanted, which was a socialist economy, which was actually the state running several industries and making sure there was a cooperative ownership across the American economy, which was just too far. That was beyond the pale for what's ever been really acceptable in America. But it got very close to actually happening in Minnesota.
Damn, dude. Well, all right.
That's crazy.
You finally get it. You're the much mystified and sought after Walter Mondale episode section of our episode.
I hope this scratched your Fritz. Hello. Been saving that.
All right. Well, where should we move from there? Should we go into modern politics of the area? Should we talk a little bit about, I think we should talk to our guests a little bit.
Yeah.
The serfs. I know one thing you guys do is talk about reactionaries, our favorite people.
It's the bread and butter, you know, these days.
Yeah. The bread
you heard
tube and the butter
anything-
tube.
Have you heard anything from
Fleshlight.
Destiny since last week? Has he followed up with you at all?
Oh right, let's talk about that.
Oh,
yeah,
since
you guys were-
since the
In
big
case
debate.
people don't know about this, lay it down.
Yeah, I mean, nothing too exciting to announce. I hosted, or I guess moderated, a debate between Richard Wolff, esteemed PhD professor in economics and lefty icon, and Destiny, the debate lord of the internet. And it was, I think, an appropriate, I don't know if all of you watched it, an appropriate level of fireworks and memes and spicy things. To say the very least. I did end up, it's funny, Vice reaches out to me and they want to know about this, and they're like, it was one of those things where it's like, hey, do my homework for me. It was an email with like 30 questions and just like type out all the answers. So I ended up, I gave them like 2 real answers, which is like, this was the format of the debate, and then for the rest of the time I just fucked with them, right? I was like, he was like, how are they preparing for this? And I was like, oh well, Destiny's debating 10 men named Richard simultaneously, and Richard is actually running naked backwards through a field while the Rocky montage music plays and all this. Didn't run any of it. None of it was printed. Did not make it to print. The whole thing was just like a hit piece about how the whole thing was a disaster and terribly conceived, and how could anyone have thought of doing this and all that. I mean, I'll be totally honest. I think what they missed there was that like 40,000 people watched that live between Destiny, the Rational National streamed it, I streamed it as well. And to a lot of those people watching, that may have been the first time they'd ever heard someone talk about a lot of these concepts, especially socialism, worker cooperatives, workers owning the means of their own production, the history of socialism and how it changed throughout the years, the debate between whether the USSR is socialist, is China socialist, spoiler alert, it's not, but all this kind of stuff. I think there was a lot of value to that being exposed to so many people who normally would just be watching this kind of stuff, to watch 2 people on the internet scream at each other. That's typically what like quote unquote debates are on the internet, right? It's just two streamers with egos who says more, who clashes more, who creates more memes.
Streamers are more like screamers.
Am I right?
Sanders, get them.
Dude, when you fuck them, they stream. I noticed you guys came under like a little bit of, internet heat or whatever for that, which is kind of funny. People were just like, look at all the lasers coming out of Wolf's eyes and stuff, and like,
the aesthetics. Oh, I'll take full heat for that. Fine, fair enough. If people don't like internet cats with lasers coming out of their eyes and stuff, that's an aesthetic thing. I'm okay with that. I'm more concerned about people genuinely being upset because they thought it was beneath him, because they were like, how could Richard Wolff stoop to such a level? And again, I would reiterate that I think that was a net benefit for people who were trying to learn or at least get exposed to Richard Wolff's ideas. He's really good at communicating. Unlike, a lot of people on the internet will just like really dryly be like, well, Marxian theory says the labor theory of value means that exploitation of labor, right? And you're just like, you can't Noam Chomsky your way into the hearts and minds of everybody. You need people like Richard Wolff who are angry, concise, clear, and say, this is what I believe and this is why. And this is why I think it'll be better, So
I think there's like an interesting argument to be had about like what any of us are doing and how much of this is just like punditry and how much of this is just like you're just trying to make your Patreon pop off or whatever. But like, honestly, I was thinking about this though, because a while back somebody pointed out something that I can't kind of stop thinking about here and there. It's not fun to really stare at, which is that technically I think Vosh is the most famous anarchist in history, just because of all the views, like numbers wise, if you rack up like that versus sales of books or whatever. So like there is something to this where there are more eyeballs on this than there would be were we having a very bone dry discussion in a bookstore somewhere or whatever. And so, is that not the role of what we are doing here? Isn't it to make things palatable and accessible and stuff like that?
Like I think if you cross that line and you lie to people and you say that, like, you know, Pod Damn America is actually a political movement that is actively going to change the world just by your Patreonage, you know, rather than being like, we are some really talented lefty comedians who are here to entertain you but also educate you. I think that would be the difference.
Also deceitful, but yeah.
That's all right. That's normal level of deceitful for a
Right.
The only lie we're operating on is that we are funny and have skills and know what we're doing. Yeah, no. Go ahead.
Like, compared to other debates, even, it doesn't seem like it's a parody to me. Like, I watched that Zizek versus Peterson debate on my honeymoon a few years ago. I was on the other side of the world. I was like, baby, Zizek's on.
Dude, I got something sexy for you.
We're taking the night off. We're going back on the internet. And I was watching that. That was 100 times less watchable than your debate. And I don't think it had any more, you know, intellectual gravitas to it than Richard Wolff very calmly explaining what Russia was to a StarCraft player.
Yeah, that Zizek debate also was treated pretty cheaply and comically by the internet. So I don't know. This feels like an inconsistency that people aren't mad about that, and it feels like bullshit to me. I guess they're trying to catch people in an inconsistency that doesn't really exist. You just have to accept that things are like this now. Things look like this. There's lasers coming out of everyone's eyes.
I mean, yeah, you're watching a podcast where half of you have digital glasses right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed the debate. I don't know that it was like a actual. I mean, I appreciate that you are one of the few people who actually tries to make it a debate, not just, you know, spewing invective and insulting each other. But it's hard to do that with Destiny because he's an idiot. Like, and I think that was shown. So if nothing else, like you didn't really get a very strong, you know, clash of ideologies between communism and capitalism, but you did, I think, reveal this guy for what he is, which is just someone who talks really fast but actually has no idea what he's talking about.
That's funny because the biggest complaint people had was that I let Richard Wolff speak too much. But I was saying, I was like, if you look at the words per minute of Richard Wolff, which is like, what, 5? The parody becomes a little bit more equal there after we measure it all out. But he did speak a little bit more. But I mean, I've interviewed Richard Wolff before. The man is a lecturer. He's a professor, right? So I think my first interview with him, because I was so awestruck, I asked him maybe 4 questions in an hour, and that was all the time I had. And the second time I spoke to him, I was like, all right, I got to cut him off, because if I don't, he will never stop talking, because he knows so much about these topics and does this for a living.
That happens all the time when we interview like academics and just people who are fairly intelligent and aren't internet freaks who don't talk. Sometimes I will prepare for a podcast for hours, and then I realize, like, oh, you only have to ask the guy 3 questions because they'll just start going into lecture mode and stuff. It's great.
Yeah.
Great for content.
One other thing I wanted to talk to you about, though, I guess it's 2 things. One, what does it feel to be in both a state and a city that seems to be constantly ravaged by controversies? I see Rudy just got caught today, and just all these sexual accusations popping out for other members.
I woke up right before we did the show here. What happened to Rudy today?
Oh, Rudy got raided.
Yeah, not a Twitch raid. His house was actually stuff got confiscated or something. Yeah. What the investigation is about? What?
They're trying to get Tutar back from Borat movies. Sorry. No, what happened?
Well, now I'm going to pull up the.
I don't know exactly what the charges were. I think it has to do with Ukraine.
His business partners. Federal investigators have raided Rudy Giuliani's domicile, it would seem. Federal investigators raid Rudy Giuliani's New York City apartment over the Ukraine dealings. Investigators seize several electronic devices in the raid. It's not looking great. It's not looking great. I mean, it's been a pretty concise, I wouldn't say fall from grace, but he did go from, like, the mayor of 9/11, who I thought was pretty well respected across the board over the span of 4 years, to, like, isn't that the guy who melts on screen and touches himself in front of minors in the Borat movie kind of shit,
Yeah. I mean, it's been pretty funny living in the same place as Giuliani, but I don't think he's been well liked by anyone, left of center for quite some time. Every time he talks about 9/11, he's like, remember? Like, he's like sleeping with you to try to get
he's
you to
doing
like
a Jeb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
He
a-
has I think, a very devil may care outlook on life, because I believe before 9/11 he recovered from a pretty serious cancer scare, and then 9/11 happened. So he just has like this invincibility complex. Like he just gives out his phone number to whoever and just does not care about covering his tracks with just breaking the law constantly.
What about Cuomo? Is he still quasi?
He's hanging on. He's hanging on. There's an investigation pending, and we're in kind of. It sounds like we're in kind of uncharted territory here, because he doesn't have any control over the investigation. He tried to get it to be done by a department that's under his thumb, but Tish James, the Attorney General, is independent from him, so she's investigating a number of things: the sexual harassment, which is not going away, and the handling of the nursing home deaths. So I don't know. It's kind of depressing because at first it was like exciting, like it seemed like he was going to be impeached, but he's still very popular in New York State.
Even with the
people
death
like
count,
him.
like I heard new numbers are coming out now that are showing that they were dramatically underreported, like dramatically.
I mean, yeah, I mean all that, but like all this stuff has been, known for years, but people just don't want to hear it. They're like, this is a conspiracy against Cuomo. It's
I
just
feel like we often forget that there's an entire state around New York City that is not like New York City, really. Or even within New York City, like, there's a lot of not everyone's a Brooklyn hipster, there's a lot of like this weird bridge and tunnel and like Long Island type shit where like I mean, he's their Trump. He's just Democrat Trump.
Yeah, true.
right.
Like that he's a hard ass and that he doesn't take no shit and that he can't get canceled and all this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like it does seem like if he does try to run again, which we should not put past him, he will lose, which is a good thing. But there's a chance that he ekes it out and doesn't get impeached. What I think is probably going to happen is the report is going to come back really and be really bad, and he's going to refuse to resign, and he's going to get his tools in the state assembly to not go ahead with impeachment. And then maybe he'll decide not to run again and get off scot-free. That's kind of the worst case scenario. Best case scenario, he gets impeached.
Yeah.
I just want him out.
I want to bug you about. I know that you are kind of a specialist on reactionaries and the Shapiros and the little wiener guys of the right and the alt right.
I watch them every day.
What's
it's the life I've chosen for myself. It's my own personal hell curated.
We all saw Shapiro with the board. That was very funny. Did anything slip through the cracks recently? What's coming out of that?
I'll tell you the most astounding ones. Yesterday, Joe Rogan coming out with more anti-vax stuff, stating that if you're 21 and you're healthy, if you're a young buck and you're thriving, then you don't need to take the vaccine, which was just decidedly horrible information to be telling your millions and millions of Spotify listeners and viewers, to be totally honest. Not the first time he's done that too. I was pretty shocked that this has been something like he might need a disclaimer at a certain point. Like they've taken down, I know Spotify took down his Alex Jones episodes for self-evident reasons. And then at this point, they might have to start saying like the following program contains non-medical information.
This is fucking dumb.
Yeah, that could endanger you or your loved ones. Please be careful.
He seems more dumb than he is like kind of evil. So it is really just like someone needs to just hold a sign next to him at all times. I have no idea what he's talking about.
Is that weird for you in the podcast?
Anti-vax.
Oh, sorry. Good.
Well, what's his angle for the anti-vax stuff that you can't trust it because it
just doesn't think you need
got
it.
Microchips in it?
It's more that if you're just a young, healthy, strapping male, that you've got enough testosterone defeating viruses in your body already. So why add this to the mix?
It's like a raw milk angle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
on the debate, which I don't think we've seen given a hearing at a public level.
Yeah,
No,
it would be
that's
one
also
thing
true.
if it was literally only those people who heard that, but there are going to be a lot of, 31, 41-year olds who hear this going to be like, yeah, I'm basically 21. I
Yeah, I'm
basically have,
basically 20.
yeah,
I'm still a hot young man.
right.
And I'm 45 years old and I listen to podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the thrust of his podcast, right? It's all like muscle milk guys and shit. But see, the problem with those guys is that they're chasing the fountain of youth. They're not like us, we're just sliding downward.
Oh,
We're aging
gave up years ago.
rapidly. I'm gonna die in like 20 years. It's gonna be great. Maybe 15. I don't know. People are tweeting at me about how fat I am, and I'm like, I know.
We're going to be live streaming Jake's funeral, but there's going to be a lot of audio issues.
Yeah.
A lot of filters.
But the thing is, even if everyone who listened to his show was like the guy from Never Back Down, and there was just millions and millions of those, and they all meet in a parking lot and fight later, it still wouldn't matter because the whole issue is the concept of herd immunity and preventing other people from getting the illness, which is just something scientifically we're just all scooting right on past to, like,
Oh yeah.
when are fat people getting it? Is it cheap? Is there going to be a patent? Is India even going to be a country anymore later?
Yeah.
Let's find out.
Yeah, that's been ridiculous as well. I know. I'm sure you guys are aware that like the majority of big reactionaries in the U.S. they get born in Canada. Like your Steven Crowders, your Jordan Peterson, your Stefan Molyneux, your.
Why is that?
You have a robust arts program.
Wait, is Molyneux from
Canada?
Canada?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
Ireland?
He's one of those dual citizens who kind of moves back and forth. And then Lauren Southern too.
What is his accent? Is what I'm trying to figure out.
Racist. I think it's racism. Yeah.
It's a racist voice. It's
Yeah.
a voice forged in hate.
What does he sound like? What do you do him?
Not an argument. That's what I said. That's not an argument.
It's like he's here. It's like he's in the room.
Yeah. Whoa. Where did you go?
Yeah, I think it's your country, and they have these wonderful arts programs that encourage the youth, and it does re-examine the point of history. Like, what if Hitler was encouraged to do more drawing? Would he become like a YouTube guy?
It probably would have been better.
I hadn't really thought about the Canadian aspect of it, but I do know that, like, as stand-up comics, we're also kind of in a, like, there's a reflection of that in, like, our medium. Stand-up and like podcasting and shit like that in this city also specifically has sort of become like an incubator for a lot of these people, and it serves as this
like right-wing reactionaries.
Yeah, like weird reactionary, like there's like a comic to punditry kind of path where you slowly move from jokes to then like takes, but the takes are hidden under this shield of like, I'm just joking, and then like kind of next thing you know, you just pull the mask off one day and you're just on Tucker Carlson or whatever.
I think it's kind of cleaner this way because there was a big institution like 10 years ago with this whole wave of comics who joined who would do takes, but in a jokes format. So they'd like stand up in front of a crowd and just be like, women steal. There'd be 20 minutes of your life and you just like leave being like, I don't know what any of us are doing now. If this is it. If this is the same job I'm trying to get.
Yeah.
That's a terrible pipeline. I mean, that's too bad because normally comedians, they seem to be like the counterculture, right? They're the ones punching up, and all the goats that I ever think of are obviously ones who were seminal and transgressive and all that kind of stuff. It's sad to hear that it's now being this factory for right-wing pundits, or at least the career path anyway.
Well, I think that there's like a
both.
paradoxical nature to that, because a lot of these pundit type guys that come out of comedy tell people that that's what they're doing, but they'll sort of downplay the disqualifying fact that they are in power and are winning the culture war right now. So you can't really be like an iconoclast if you are also the icon. if you're also like, especially like when Trump was president and stuff like that. But I mean, still, you know, they're very powerful right now, and so you know, you could also kind of follow this to its next logical degree, which is that like, okay, well, the next thing to do in comedy is to fuck with those people, which is what I am doing all day on fucking the internet instead of working and shit. Unfortunately, and I don't know if that's really working either, because yeah, it's just infighting or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that I don't, sometimes that thing you just described, that like idea of comedians being like these like social, you know, like heretics or whatever, and like, you know, really fucking shit up by pointing out the emperor's clothes don't exist and stuff like that. I think that sometimes that's more of an idea than it is a reality. Like it's just a thing that people cling to and like use as cover for, you know, for often for doing the opposite of that, for reifying really resentful reactionary shit that is just, I'm a white guy and I'm angry about fucking black people or women or whatever.
Cancel culture.
I just had a take the other day that was, if you think comedy changes the world, or that it will never do anything no matter how hard you try, you're probably overthinking it.
That's what I
either way. Yeah. I think that's correct. I mean, the reactionary pipeline in comedy is just simple, like economics. Like this is always Jake's big point, but like doing comedy is not like a job. There was never intended to be millions of paid performers who just tell you their thoughts they're having. There's no way economically that makes sense. But what there is there are very rich people who want to forward these ideas, who have money and who own television stations like Red Eye and shit, which we talked about a few weeks ago, and they can just pay whoever they want to go viral online or whatever. So that is a job. And like there are the takes industry making fun of those people as a job. And if you want to do your slam poetry or your witty observations and check power, you're welcome to do that. It just probably won't make you any money.
Yeah, because the money tends in that direction for that reason. And then the rest of the pool is there's no current moving in any direction. You're free to just float around, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can speak for someone who does this stuff on the left. I've never had the knock on the door, the George Soros check or anything like that. But I do like that people on the other end are constantly having to prove that. Like Dave Rubin will be like, "Oh, I swear, the Koch brothers have never sent me a dime. It's all just random shadow cabinets and things like that." And you're like, well, yeah. It seems at the end of these, it's always like sponsored by the Heritage Foundation. Like,
right, well, yeah, okay. It's not true at all. They put it all through like shell companies and stuff, right?
Yeah. Typically. Yeah. And they get to a size. Like I don't know if you follow Steven Crowder and his past antics, but the guy has grown to such a degree that he can get away with virtually anything on YouTube. Like I've had both my YouTube channels deleted. Like just delete. Like I woke up one day and the channel was just gone. You know, there's no warning, no strike. Just it's off the internet. And luckily, you know, thanks to making noise on Twitter and having a bit of a following, the channels came back. But Crowder on a regular basis seems to be like, how far can I take things? Like the other day he had a sketch, and I put sketch. I know listeners at home can't see the quotation marks, where the whole thing was just him seeing if he could survive George Floyd being knelt on by his friend, and that was like, this is comedy. This is the whole sketch, start to finish. I'm gonna put this on YouTube, and nothing will happen. Like no consequences, no nothing. It's just that's the level of conservative comedy that we're at now.
Those guys, a lot of his comedy, it's just he is mad and he's in a dress.
Yeah, a lot of it is. Well, I mean, a lot of it is just basically, I'm like, I'm going to vilify this person, dehumanize them, and then, that's the whole sketch. It's just, his whole, like, he tried to do a trans sketch, and the whole thing was he dresses up, he goes into a gym, and he was hoping that he would get a reaction out of people, that they would treat him very differently, and that would be comedy, right? Comedy gold. And because they didn't, everyone treated him completely normally, he had to make a scene. So he actually starts throwing weights around and being a huge asshole until finally someone's like, you have to calm down. But that was it, and the whole thing is a dud. But like that's the whole shtick, start to finish.
Yeah, I watched that sketch, and I was watching. I was like, you uploaded this?
I know. Well, the hubris.
It does seem like if you recorded something like that, you'd have to think to yourself, like, at least nobody saw this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because everyone was just polite, as you would be to a like trans
person in a gym. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's
or
the world
even
we
not
live
a
in
trans person, just like an insane guy, which is I think
which is
how
what
he
Crowder
comes
is.
across most of the
which is
time.
what he does. Yeah.
Right, yeah, that's so funny. Those guys are always doing like, it's like they're attempting jackass, but without really understanding the essence of it. Because
What made it funny or
yeah,
entertaining?
because
Yeah.
jackass is very like, it's a love it, it's
Yeah.
a bunch of guys hurting each other, but they're all friends with each other and shit. And
Yeah,
then like
exactly.
Republicans attempting comedy is always just like, we're gonna waterboard Andy. Watch, prove it's fine.
Weak soy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what do you think about my arch nemesis Tim Dillon, man? Have you followed him at all?
Well, I had it until yesterday, and wow, that was a terrible introduction. Why? Okay, first off, why arch nemesis? Like, do you guys go way back?
He used to be just a comedian around town, like when we were all just doing stand up in New York, and then I kind of watched him go through the red eye pipeline, and like I had this kind of big weird. I used to like think, oh, this guy's like annoying, but he's like fine. Also, he's pretty funny when he did comedy. But basically, what happened with me and him is after Charlottesville, he just started sharing alt-right propaganda, like fake Photoshop shit of like Antifa, and he's like drop kicking a baby, and like back then that was like the whole thing. After Charlottesville was like Antifa is the real threat or whatever. That was the stuff that was coming out of those forums and stuff like that. And so I got into this weird thing with him where I just was like, this isn't real. Like you're peddling a fake thing. And he kind of got in my face and got really weird about it. So since then I've just decided to clown on him for his what used to be personal gratification, and now he's a famous thing or whatever. And I think he's kind of becoming like, I think he's becoming the next like kind of alt-righty pundit without realizing it. And I say that because it's now becoming a thing where like I went home to Texas a while back, and like I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was just like, do you know who this Tim Dillon, like people that don't know any of this, we're just like, do you know who this is? My friend is like, he won't stop listening to this podcast, and he's all red pilled now, and he's just screaming about like the cancel culture and Kenosha and shit. And so I was sort of watched this go from some dude that the three of us kind of knew, to like the trajectory to me seems like you will be doing shit about him in like a year or something like that is my prediction. Like he'll be like kind of in that world because he's he goes on Rogan now, and he's constantly defending like Tucker Carlson and stuff like that. And
which is wild. Well, the first thing I saw him on his channel was he just has an interview with Jordan Peterson. Like that's that was his big thing. I was like, that's pretty massive.
Yeah, and he did like Candace Owens,
big in comedy.
Shit. And he did that thing that right. I mean, these people are big in quote unquote comedy, because comedy you don't actually make any money just doing comedy. So the end goal, if you want to make money, is platforming people like this and referring to it as an exchange of ideas, which I guess kind of comes back around to the debate thing, because there is kind of a warning there's an argument against having these like streaming debates and stuff like that, because like if it is just sport, after a while this does become an ecosystem with which like fascists just notice that there's platforms for them to get on constantly, because everyone wants to have the contrarian devil's advocate, we're going to debate the fucking fascist instead of ignoring them thing or whatever.
Well, it's funny you say that with Tim Dillon, because the first video I saw of him was one of those. I'm shocked you uploaded this. It's like a viral video where he is bombing on stage and yelling at his audience and just making fun of them, like ripping into them. But I guess maybe that plays well with the conservative crowd. That's like, look at this, the conservative comedian owns snowflake audience who are like shocked by him. But I was really astounded. That's the trailer for his channel. It's like 3 or 4 minutes of him just being like, yeah, you came to a comedy show and you're astounded that I'm telling jokes. You're all a bunch of cucks and snowflakes and cancel culture. That's the whole clip. So
the other thing is, comedians love watching themselves bomb. They always think it's very cathartic and funny to be like, that was what happened. It happened, and I'm happy it happened. Tim is a weird person to watch people start taking seriously, because I almost feel like he has a particularly New York area vibe to him. Like when he was just a stand-up, you would look at him and you'd be like, this is a fat, furious man from Long Island. I know what I'm getting into here. I have met 100 of these gentlemen. I know they're crazy in advance, and that's part of the fun for me. Whereas now he's like taken this whole like live clown element out of it. And now it's just like, listen very carefully to this insane gentleman we brought you. Joe Rogan is his friend.
Yeah, I mean, it would be one thing if he was actually like having these people on to like make fun of them or debate them, but it's like he just slobbers all over them. It's sad, honestly. The Gavin McInnes interview
no, he brought Gavin
Yeah.
McInnes on. Wow.
Yeah, he
Wow.
doesn't really challenge him on anything. It's just kind of, he does it for the clicks, which is fair enough, but like don't get mad at other people then for having, for wanting, because that's the other thing he'll say is like, well, I'm a comic, I'm trying to be funny, and you guys are you're doing political commentary or whatever. That's not comedy. It's like, okay, well, you just had Jordan Peterson on for an hour, and were you like roasting him or like doing
what good
goofs or like
zingers
Yeah.
did he get
Yeah.
in?
Well,
Right.
it's because it's like this warped perspective thing, because you're pitching it like kind of at people who consider themselves to be liberal for some reason or whatever. You're saying like, I'm tipping the scales back in a direction that is more balanced. I'm, platforming people who you would normally be intolerant of or whatever. But the thing is, it's still wildly inconsistent, because when he has on like a reactionary, like some psycho, like if he's talking like David Duke or something, he's like, wow, you're so interesting. And whenever he's talking about anything on the other side of the spectrum, he's like, shut the fuck up, I'll fucking kill you. And it's like, that's not objective.
Centrism.
Yeah.
Balance, as all things should be. That's
He
funny you bring that
said
up. The only time I've interacted with Gavin McInnes, I called into a talk show that he was hosting, and I just said, I should call you Frankenstein because you created two monsters that have kind of taken you over, both the Proud Boys and Vice. Which one are you least ashamed of? And then his next question was, how old are you? Can we get less losers on the panel? And then kicked me off. It lasted like 10 seconds.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like how you hit him with like a rap diss.
Yeah, I know. Oh, speaking of which, wasn't your actual arch nemesis some New York-based SoundCloud rapper named Random?
Random. I forgot about him. Yeah.
Your actual nemesis,
I
Jake.
have a lot of nemesis.
You gotta do some.
Don't forget who pulls the strings in the city.
Yeah, I forgot about him. Have you? I feel like you played him on your show or something.
Like I said, I actually listened to Pod Down America, and the first time I ever heard about him and saw his music video, I was like, oh, this is gold. This is amazing. His name is Random, and the whole song is about how everything in the universe is random. Like what?
It's random.
What
There's
more
no
can you
good or
ask
evil,
for?
It's random.
Yeah, it's just random.
No, we like him. We're promoting him.
Well, that's the thing is, Random is a genuine star. And so, like, when somebody like that pops up and they have no business sense and they're like just dyeing their hair black and rapping into a camera, you're like, you're not going to make it on your own, but I need to take what you have and show it to other people. I was genuinely very afraid of him for a while because he seems like somebody who might actually come find where you live and kill you, but that never happened. So here we are.
Wasn't he one of those people who came to you at live shows and would talk to you, or he would
I don't
follow
think I've
you?
ever seen him in real life.
Oh, okay.
I've never seen him in real life. No.
Here's what I think about Mark Random. I don't think I've ever seen him, and I'm certain that he's seen me. And I
I mean, he has done some terrible things. Like he's taken the stage at open mics and just condemned all women and called personally
condemned all
pointed.
women. That
He
is
condemned the whole institution of
what an
being one.
insane thing to do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Can I
There's a
ask you
video
all a
of him
question?
like comics will put up like, oh, I did this show, or sometimes I did this mic, and he does it with his mics, some of which he will add in a laugh track, and it's just misogynistic rants. But there's one where he's just like, he gets kicked out because he's in a screaming match with this woman he's calling a cunt.
Oh,
Very
comedy gold.
cool.
Yeah.
Please stand against this.
Yeah. Another thing about the roots of this in like the comedy world that I think people maybe are not that familiar with is that libertarianism used to be very big in even like cool comedy. Like
Yeah.
when I was starting, Doug Stanhope was really big. Doug Stanhope filmed an entire special wearing a baseball jersey that said libertarian across the front like that. And it was like, for whatever reason, we didn't have the same perspective I think that we probably have on it now, which is like, after Trump happened, honestly, you went, oh shit, that's very, I see how that's connected to the alt-right now. Like it's like a doorway in thinking about things in that way. And, you know, me personally, I read a lot about it and realized like, oh, okay, this all makes perfect sense. The libertarian ideology is where like, you know, the fucking Chicago boys and all this shit came from. It was all of it came into focus, but at the but way back before that, you know, the libertarian ideology appealed to comedians because they're, you know, bored white guys who wanted to start a business, a business where they were like a, you know, the traveling fucking what do you call it, the guy who hawks stuff, like not a swindler, whatever,
snake oil salesman. Yeah,
that type of thing or whatever. But it was very self-empowering, and it was all about like using the market and stuff like that. And that like those ideas stuck with people and created, I think, a premise for, well, anything that comes in the way of my path now is inherently like
treading.
This must be like a huge fucking problem or whatever.
Yeah, it's treading like, upon you. It's
the natural order of things is that I, you know, can start a business where I sell Who Farted t-shirts in my garage, and anything that stands in the way of it must be like you know, it's toxic or whatever, which is weird because it's like we were saying earlier, this is not natural. There's not supposed to be a million stand-up comedians. Like there's no demand for it, you know. But I don't know, we could probably get way into this and probably nothing good would come of it.
Nothing good would come of it.
Yeah.
People
nothing
like,
of value was lost.
No, but this goes into like a litmus test I have for a conspiracy, which is you can tell if something holds water if you can take your friend who's not on the internet and explain what is happening to them.
Yeah, then impossible.
Like if he's the editor of Encyclopedia Dramatica, those are just nonsense words to like somebody who just lives a normal life. But if you're like, his grandfather was the director of the CIA and there's a pipeline, there might be something there. I don't know. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Yeah, the terminally online would not have understood most of what I said, but they will understand exactly what you did. I didn't think about that.
It's funny.
It hasn't come up as much since the election. I feel like the election had a lot of like political ideas or arguments that you feel like have a very big effect on the national discourse, but then you literally cannot explain them to your girlfriend, and you're like, oh, maybe this is just something I've been looking at
festering on. I will tell you this, I miss during the height of Bernie is about to become the president and nothing bad can ever happen and this timeline is synchrosynced and everything is perfect, how united all the factions of the left were, you know, the anarchists, the anarcho-communists, even the you know, the democratic socialists and the soc-dems. Everyone we were all in sync. And post-pandemic, it's just been everyone's terminally online and horny and angry and on Twitter all day, just on Twitter all day, becoming more angry and horny and terminally online. It seems to be a never-ending perpetual cycle.
Yeah, the pandemic really did not do anyone any favors with that particular aspect of it. Because, like, sure, everything is naturally going to break up, but also, like, online just creeps into your fucking head so hard.
Or in the other aspects, where it was a deadly virus that killed hundreds of thousands of people.
That was also bad.
Yeah, that one also is unfortunate.
You know what you just reminded me of, Alex, with the thing you were talking about, where like there's people that like that think that the thing that they did online caused the actual material reality to happen. Did you ever watch that documentary about the Pepe frog guy?
Oh, it's amazing. Great movie.
What's it fucking called? The Feels Good Man or whatever?
Yeah.
4chan.
Doctor Feel Good.
Doctor Feels Good Man? That's the white doctor. No, on 4chan, when like Trump got elected, all the weird Pepe people were like, "We did it," which is like weird because
they thought they memed it. They thought they memed the presidency. Yeah,
like you did not do that, but you were part of it, I guess.
It was called meme magic. I found that all out. I was like, this is wild. They thought they were actually memeing power in the real world. Some of it is true, obviously. You can there's an efficacy to propaganda and pushing ideas out there through that kind of stuff. But to single-handedly take credit for you know, the mass alienation that Americans feel and how Trump was able to capitalize on that is a bit rich.
Right.
Yeah.
And the schisms in the Republican Party and all this stuff that you had absolutely nothing to do with over decades of political development, and just be like, I made him a frog. We all made him a frog, and now he's in the White House.
Well, I mean, thank God they didn't do anything the second time. Thank God they stopped memeing. That's how Biden won.
They did J6, which is much cooler.
That's true.
I was just reading this story. Did you hear this thing about fucking J6? There's what's this? Arkansas lawmaker, what's his name? U.S. Representative Bruce Westerman of Arkansas during January 6th hid on a toilet with a sword. It like just came out, I guess. It was just classified.
Ready for battle.
Yeah. But it's like so funny to think about that in contrast with the AOC thing where everyone's like mad at her for talking about trauma or whatever.
Oh god, that was so ridiculous.
The sword man almost got me.
I don't know. All right. Well, we've been going for a while. I think we all got stuff to do. We should probably wrap up here. Does anybody have anything else you want to get to before we get out of here?
No, I think we're good.
Did we mention Walter Mondale?
Oh,
We did.
Okay.
We checked it off the list. Yeah.
Part 2 supplemental Walter Mondale episode coming soon.
Oh, can I can end on some hopium for everybody. The ending to that story, by the way, with the CCF and Tommy Douglas and Canadian healthcare coming to pass, all the powers that be, all the capital powers, they united with the doctors, everyone trying to fight it, could not succeed once the voice and the basically the movement of the people, the spirit of the people spread like wildfire. The idea of getting free Medicare spread so successfully that they actually defeated those who were far richer than them. It was poor agrarian farmers who were fighting at that time in history for Medicare to pass. And Tommy Douglas himself came from poverty, and his story is that he had an injury on his leg and the doctor was going to amputate it. He's like, yeah, sorry, we're gonna have to amputate this, because he couldn't afford healthcare or anything, and that was the cheapest option they had. And a doctor was walking by, saw it, and was like, this little 6-year-old kid, hey, I'm gonna go give a demonstration to some doctors on how to fix your exact problem. If I do that for free, can we show it? And he was like, sure. And that experience alone instilled in his mind, if every single person, even me, the son of a welder, had free healthcare, then the world would be a better place. So it's actually a heartwarming story that grew to a national movement and grew to a federal movement eventually, and won. So it can happen anywhere, even in a backwards place like Canada.
What if what if it went down differently, right? What if it was like the greatest Canadian of all time was a man. He was ex-military, but he had his arms froze off by Sub-Zero in a battle while he was defending Cole, the main character. And then afterwards, he was radicalized by having metal arms put onto where his arms used to be. And that is how we get healthcare to spread like wildfire, for people to see this man's glorious metal arms. And
it's Jax. It's always been Jax.
When you install his first round of metal arms, you think, well, this public healthcare is no good. His arms are too small. But when he unlocks his dragon tattoo, they're far larger metal arms.
Oh, it's naturalized now. It's not just single pair. Healthcare. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Let's do plugs. Where can our listeners watch Serfs and find all your stuff?
Hey, everywhere social media is sold, just go to the Serfs TV. So Twitter, the Serfs TV, TikTok, the Serfs TV, Pornhub, the Serfs TV. Super simple. Or if you just want to check out our own webpage, weareserfs.com. Super easy.
And it's Serfs with an E.
Serfs with an E, not like a surfer. Like a feudal pleb. I'm a feudal pleb.
That's right.
And then how about y'all? Do it in the other direction, because you're on the Surf Show
check
live
out
right now.
Friday night, our Twitch stream at 10:30. I don't know if I've ran this by the boys, but going to be streaming a movie. If you have Amazon Prime, we can watch it free. Draft day, because NFL draft is going on, and Dennis Leary was in a movie, sort of a light comedy about the NFL draft. It looks really stupid, and looking forward to watching it with some guests who will be announced shortly.
I'm hearing about it just now. It sounds great. That's twitch.tv/PodDamnAmerica.
Yep.
Alex,
Great.
you got anything?
Subscribe to Pod Damn America on soundcloud.com or wherever podcasts are sold. And this Sunday, May 2nd, we have a fundraiser comedy show for DSA's Defund the Police Racial Justice Working Group. And Jake's on it, and you can come and you can watch Jake and you get mad at Jake. And that's the show, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Ballin'.
It should be a Zoom thing where you can throw tomatoes at the guy.
You can raise your hand, but then have nothing to say. And that's probably the most disrespectful thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that show is one of my plugs, and then my other one is if you want to hear like a really in-depth theories I have about all that shit I was talking about, listen to my other podcast, Why You Mad? I do with my friend Luisa Diaz, who's a comedy booker and an anthropologist, and also was there when Luis Gomez spit in my face and pushed her into the table and started all of the great war of winter.
The Fire Nation attacked.
And it's why I have to think about all this stuff. All right. That's it. That's the show. Thank you, the Serfs TV.
Bye. Hey, do you like movies? Do you like Serfs? Do you want movies and Serfs watching the movies? So then come over to the new channels. It's the Serfs the cinema. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Can you do the thing, that thumbs up and comment and all those things that help us out in the algorithm that controls every aspect of our lives? Also, if you happen to have a Facebook account, can you delete it? Like just delete it. You should probably delete your Facebook account because it's not a great company. But hey, if you can't do that for whatever reason, I understand. And could you also go to facebook.com/thesurftimes then and give us a little like and a follow. We're just trying to push back against the fact that people like Ben Shapiro happen to dominate the platform entirely. And when everyone asks why do older generations believe the things they believe, one of the problems is the majority of them on social media use Facebook. So to counter that, we're just going to be on there too now. Also, if you happen to have a union or a worker co-op or even a leftist project podcast, website, Zoom, MySpace, it doesn't matter. We will advertise it for free on this channel. All you got to do is go to weareserfs.com and use the forms that we got there, weareserfs.com. Thanks, everybody.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and VK Jehannam, we are prepared to commit human sacrifices for your eternal glory. To our monarchs, the Tim Caucus and Tom Spiker, we are humbled to be your oafish jesters, clowning around in your royal court. To our lords, Evan Nudie, Tofox, Ryan Lubin, Trevor R., Jeff Lamb, and Alexander Thaler, we shall proudly carry your standard onto the battlefield and die for your precious land. To our esteemed Knights of the Round Table, Dark Puppy, Jenna Towell, Anna Loves Riley, Quiet 185, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevor Janis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojak, Saren 42, Chronic to Hemphog, The Great Pudini, Bone Genie, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramona Costa, J. Fraser Cartwright, Jimmy Bignuts, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Yopi, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our glass, we raise our swords, and we salute you.